All right, it's recording. You should be good.
All right, awesome. So we'll just wait until 3:05 to let participants flow in. So to the participants joining in, we're just waiting a couple more minutes, allowing other students to join. But thank you so much for coming. We have our two panelists here ready to go and they're very excited. And I will introduce them very shortly. Okay, so I think we can get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us and welcome to our Women Are a Collection of Their Journeys, our second session of a 6-part series here with our student government. It's an honor to be with all of you here today, continuing this initiative with SGA on women empowerment. This program focuses around different topics and conversations touching on all career paths. Our goal is to showcase women all over the country and their courageous paths to success while giving our students the opportunity to engage, create new relationships, and enhance their professional development. Since I started my journey within student government as Secretary of Governmental Relations, I envisioned establishing a program that focused on women in politics to create grassroots opportunities and initiatives for women pursuing careers in government at our university. This idea then blossomed to a bigger scope, highlighting FIU women and friends in their respected professional careers, as well as our fellow friends here at FIU. This year, it is my goal to move the needle on student engagement by tying together professional development with advocacy. This program will offer our students holistic opportunities to enhance their professional development. It is extremely important that we create more opportunities for students to find their place here at FIU. By expanding our reach, working closely with our student groups, promoting student diversity and inclusion, we create a more inclusive environment that truly highlights the vast diversity of our students. And I'm hopeful that this program will focus on all these factors. I want to segue into introducing our amazing panelists who embody the idea of women empowerment, especially in their established careers in which they advocate for other women on a day-to-day basis. First, Danielle McNally is the deputy editor of Marie Claire, where she oversees features across all platforms and contributes to the brand's print, digital, social, and marketing strategy. Danielle has been a senior editor at Cosmopolitan and Details and held editorial positions at Shape and Food Network magazine. She holds bachelor's degrees in journalism and political science from the University of Miami and is a 3-time National Magazine Award nominee. Thank you, Danielle. We also have Nashira Williams, who is the director of the Women's Center here at FIU. She's also a councilwoman. Dr. Nashira Williams is the current leader at FIU's Women's Center. Her role serves to continuously build capacity to engage everyone in the empowerment of women to grow intellectually, professionally, and personally, as well as strive towards gender equity by educating and advocating for systematic changes that improve the lives of everyone at FIU. She received a Bachelor's of Science from Florida State University, as well as a Master's of Science and PhD from FIU's higher education program. Nashira's research continues to focus on Black women's volunteering motivation and how they make meaning from those experiences. Nashira has been a 7th grade English teacher with Teach for America, an academic advisor, a professor, and she was elected to her local community council in 2016, where she listens to constituents and interested parties about zoning and community well-being. So thank you both for being here. I would love for you guys to share more information about yourselves if you want to, if I missed anything.
I'll just say that I was honored to be asked to do this by Michelle Castro, who was the head of the Panhellenic Association when I was at the University of Miami, and that's how we got to know each other when I was a member of the Panhell leadership team. So thank you so much to Michelle, and I'm glad to have a special little tie to you guys here at FIU.
Thank you so much, and we love to have you here. And on behalf of all the attendees and all the students here at FIU, it's a pleasure, and it's truly motivating to see women like both of you who have succeeded and reached points of your careers where I'm sure that you reflect and look back into your college experience and probably like never thought that you'd be where you are, and it's very motivating. So thank you. So I'm going to go into some questions that we've prepared for both of you. And first being, I believe that women should help one another, especially in your careers. You encounter that on a daily basis. So do you have any stories or advice to share on this topic? Whoever wants to go first.
Danielle, if you'd like to take it, that's great.
Sure, I can start. I agree with this statement completely. I think that depending on what field that you're in and how male or female dominated it is, that can be, this can be a harder or easier thing to grapple with. I will say I've had negative situations where at one point in my career, I was at a men's magazine, Details. And so there were a lot more men on staff than there were women, which has not been the case in most of my other positions, where magazine editorial, especially I'm now at a women's fashion magazine, I've been at women's lifestyle magazines before, those tended to be more heavily female. So the men's magazine, I did have a female boss, and I felt that there was a bit of tension there where it felt a little bit like that old negative stereotype of that there's like only room for one woman to sort of succeed, and then like, you pull the ladder up behind you sort of a thing. But I've also had some really positive situations. And I would say one thing to keep in mind, especially as you're growing in your career and you're maybe more junior and maybe you see a peer of yours get a promotion and you're a little bit jealous, or you thought maybe, you would have deserved that, or, you think like it's a little bit hard to be maybe the same number of years out of college and now they're a higher position than you are or something, but your peers are actually some of the best people to help you down the line in your career. So that happened to me at one point when I was younger, where a woman who had been my peer, we were on like a junior networking board together, she got a pretty big promotion. I think a lot of us who were our peers with her were a little bit jealous of that, but down the line, she was then in a hiring position and had an opening that was a really great fit for me. And because of our friendship and because I didn't, I kind of kept that jealousy to myself, it ended up working out really well. she was able to hire me for a role that was a really great fit. I was very grateful to her for that. We ended up working really, really well together. She then moved on to another place, another publication, but I've been able to really flourish. And the role that she hired me for was a more junior position at Mary Claire, and I've been able to grow up the ladder here. So I'm really grateful to her for that. So I would just say, to not engage in that belief that there's only room for so many women, and to not, let those feelings of envy or jealousy get the better of you if someone maybe gets promoted above you, because if you maintain a good professional relationship with them, if you keep those contacts strong, and if you show that you're excelling in your position, then that's a really great opportunity for them to hopefully help you out down the line, and then you can pay it forward.
I agree with you, Danielle, completely 100%. I think of peer mentorship as that organic mentorship that you have, because it's easier to navigate the relationships when you're about the same age. And as people transition into different spaces or into different positions, those are really the authentic ones. I think sometimes you're right, Danielle, it's great that you brought up that sometimes they can sour. I've seen that happen where people are like, well, I hang out with you on Saturday, but okay, that doesn't have anything to do with the Monday through Friday. Like, I am deserving of this because of the work that I do Monday through Friday. And so a large part of who I became as a professional when I was a teacher was because I saw some of that, and I did not like that. I did not like the fact that people were using their social settings as ways to maneuver through the professional setting. So that was a little standoffish. But I think also one of the things to my detriment is that I didn't utilize mentorship the formal way early enough. And I always thought my relationships need to be organic and we need to know each other for 2 years. I'm like, okay, after 20 minutes at this point, how can we set up a situation where it's mutually beneficial? Because that's what a mentorship is this mutually beneficial situation. And I think minute mentoring and things of that nature can be very, very helpful to move you even sometimes from one idea to the other. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a mentorship that's lifelong, that's long lasting. It could really be, I'm struggling with this one aspect. I got on the phone call with someone for 40 minutes and they pushed me past that block. And that was a great mentoring opportunity. And I think lastly, I actually was speaking with the Coast Guard recently, and they were saying how sponsorship is not spoken about enough. And sponsorship is really for me, it's the next step after mentorship, but that can only come with individuals, as Danielle said, that have the power to do some of the things that you need. So if I don't have the ability to hire you, I can't really right now be a sponsor because I'm in the same spaces that you are in, and that won't help that promotion for you. But one of the things that my mentor has done for me, she's consistently kept me in conversations. And so at a certain point in her career, she was able to say, I want to take this next step. The only person that I trust to take this next step with me is Nashira. And because of that sponsorship, I was able to progress in my career. And without it, who knows where I'd be. I don't like to predict futures that are not happening, right? That's too much. But I think if we're looking at that ultimate, like, I think people call it put me on, right? That takes a little while, and that takes the facilitation of relationships. So authentic relationships are important, and that's the basis for consistently being able to help anyone. But in particular, I always like to engage individuals in, like, the way that the media portrays women to women relationships is inaccurate. Like, it's not happening. If it's happening, it's happening in a minority of situations, but the majority of individuals in spaces who are women want to see women succeed. They don't always have a structure to that, unfortunately, but you can provide that structure, especially when you get to a point where you can name it. Like, is this a mentorship or just a friendship? Is this a sponsorship or, a mentorship? And once you can name it and act accordingly, you're going to prosper. I think having expectations on things that can't be realized can sometimes falter us when we try to support each other.
I think that was perfectly said, especially that point where you say that, like, we think that women's relationship with each other is just always so perfect and so encouraging, but that's not always the case. And that's why we want to establish these conversations with each other to be advocates for one another. And that kind of segues into my other question that deals with advocacy and wanting not only women to advocate for us, but everyone to advocate for us, and for us to have, females have always statistically been underpaid, and that inequality of not having equal pay or low employment. How would you advise these women watching to overcome that or to be advocates for that?
So I will, I'll take it away. I have a friend who works at FIU. Her name is Babyface Card. I like to shout out my friends. That's what we do. But she talks about advocacy in a way that is one step further, which is an accomplice. So you're not, she does it like bank robbery. So forgive me for this, but it's not the person watching me do the deeds in the bank. It's the person that's like, hey, I'm going to drive the car once you have this, So what are you willing to risk? That's the thing. What are you willing to risk? Are you at a state in your career where you can risk something at all? I think sometimes we look at women like, come on, can't you like help me, help myself? They can't risk anything. Unfortunately, they're at a position that they can't do much at all, but be able to use your story maybe for later when they do have a little bit more that they can risk. So I think that's where advocacy comes in. As a councilwoman, I'm in particular, I'm doing a lot of advocacy for the individuals in my community because they don't necessarily have the language, right? Or they don't have the avenue. And so I'm the conduit from the conduit of the constituents to the people who are asking to build in the neighborhood. And so that had taken a whole different lens for me, right? From being able to say, well, I'm working with women at FIU and I'm an advocate and I know all the legislation that is going on in the state of Florida to work with that, to I'm like, what does it mean to move from 1A to 2A? I'm not sure what that means. And not necessarily being paid, right? It's a voluntary situation. So that adds another layer. I'm volunteering to be able to make sure that someone's lives are being shown and viewed in the way that they want it to be. And I think that's what an advocate is making sure that the voice that is not being heard is heard authentically versus me jumbling it up for what I want it to be. And I try and do that at the university and in the community as much as possible.
I love that.
I'll add from an individual perspective, thinking about advocating for yourself in the workplace, whether that's for a raise or a promotion or, the ability to take on a big project or something. That's still something that I struggle with even now, 12 years into my career. I think that, and I can't say for sure that it's because somewhere I was socialized to believe, that women should be polite or that it's argumentative or something. I'm not sure if that is what caused me to get here, or if I'm just like a people pleaser naturally, or anti-conflict, or what it is. But I agree. I think it's very difficult to go in and advocate for yourself, especially when it comes to money. Think that it's something that with practice everyone gets better at, and I think the more prepared you can be, the more you can really have listed out the accomplishments that you made this year. I mean, I think it's really important first and foremost to know that you do deserve that raise or that promotion, and not like, oh, I've been here for a year so I should get a promotion, or well, my bills are higher now so I deserve a raise. That's not why you deserve the raise. You deserve the raise because you're improving the goals of your wherever you're working. So I think that first and foremost, list that out, and then have real tangible examples of how you have done the things that year or those 6 months or whatever it is that you're looking for, and then have the meeting with your boss and go in there and be prepared. Maybe practice with your roommate beforehand or your partner or something, and just know at the end of the day that even if they agree with you, sometimes people's hands are tied. Like I am now in a managerial role. I have the ability to hire and fire people. I have the ability to give raises or not. And sometimes I want to give someone a raise, and something at corporate is just saying, you know, it's a recession, we can't do that this year. Or for whatever their reasoning might be, there's usually at a lot of places, there's a lot of people up the chain that have to approve that decision. So I would say as the person asking for it, like your boss may really advocate for you and they may ask and you may not end up getting what you want. But the more times that you go in there and you advocate for yourself and you practice having these conversations and you reflect on your performance that year and can see all the real tangible goals that you made, like the better it will hopefully go the next time, or the more prepared you'll be to go into a job interview if it turns out that there aren't growth opportunities where you are, or you know you definitely need a different paycheck than what you're currently getting and you have to go out and look for something else. Like anytime that you can sort of prepare and practice, that'll help you down the line. So even if you don't get the answer that you want the first time, it's not all for naught. And I have to keep telling myself this as a professional. So just keep working at it.
I think that's an awesome point to add to that, to Nashira's answer, and that, you know, we can't put ourselves in a position where we feel that we're entitled to something just because we are a woman, in the sense that we have to, you know, prove to that point even more that we're fighting for, you know, the knowledge and the consensus that we deserve it because we're fighting for it, and that, you know, our hard work is paying off. So I kind of want to shift gears into asking you more of a, like, you know, personal, like how did you reach your current position in your career? What was that journey like?
I can jump off with this one first. I am a person who was lucky enough to know exactly what I wanted to do from a very young age. I acknowledge that not everyone can say that, and that it can be very daunting. Because I was lucky enough to know what I wanted to do, I chose my college very specifically. I chose my major very specifically. I majored in journalism, knowing that I wanted to work in magazines. And I also made sure to like lay the groundwork for my professional experience really, really early on. I always had internships. I went home in the summers and worked for my local paper in like a extremely entry level position that had nothing to do with journalism. My job was, this is back in before everything was digital. I would like pick things up out of the printer and carry them to another department. Like that's how rudimentary my job was. But it was really important to me to have that experience on my resume of having worked for a local newspaper. So I just think laying the groundwork, you know, early is something that helped me be successful. That's not to say that any of you who haven't been doing this can't be successful. I don't want to give that impression. But I think if you are able to set 1 year and 5 year and 10 year goals for yourself and then determine what the steps you need to take, you know, to accomplish those are, like that's a really useful and successful tool. So I came out of college, I think pretty well prepared to get a job. But I didn't have anything lined up beforehand. Journalism is not a role where you can like secure a job in the summer before senior year and then skate. So I moved to New York without a job. I was privileged and lucky enough to have some family nearby that I could stay with, so that I was able to live in this very expensive city without a paycheck at first. And I just basically I didn't even email, I like cold mailed my resume along with some copies of the magazine that I started when I was at University of Miami to like 35 or so different people. Got a couple interviews out of that. I also really used all the networks that I had made in college through my internships and got some job interviews out of that. So I feel like for me, it was just always about being prepared. And then again, like those networks, like my networks have always helped me following that throughout my career, whether it was a peer, whether it was a previous supervisor. I feel like that is something that no matter what you want to do, if you are well connected and well respected, and you also, on the flip side, try to help your network out as well, and they see that as being reciprocal and not just that you're always looking for how other people can help you, I think that will help you, you know, take that next step in your journey, whatever it is.
Danielle, I think the common thing with our stories is basically the connections, because I'm completely opposite. I think I wanted to be a doctor ever since I was like 7, but it just didn't interest me once I was in school. I was an excellent student, but my interests just changed. And my degree was in child development and sociology. So it's like, okay, I think I can teach with that, right? So I knew I wanted to leave the state of Florida, at least for a little while. Went to Texas, taught 7th grade, but that really wasn't for me. I always tell people teaching 7th graders is like herding cats. It's just not possible. We are gonna end up in the same place at some point, but who knows when that's gonna be. And I just needed a little bit different perspective. So grad school was it for me. Higher education was something I was always interested in. I went back to grad school, did an internship for part-time. So I took a definite drastic pay cut from teaching full-time to working part-time in Miami, but I have family as well. Those connections to family in Miami helped me survive. And then once I was done with grad school, I worked here and there, and I've always loved school. It is one of the common things that everyone will tell you about me. And so I went back to grad school for my PhD. At the time, it was an EDD, and it changed over to a PhD while I was in school. I actually had my daughter midway through that degree program. And, you know, I think the key to my success really was being open to the opportunities around me. I always have a backup plan. It's always a secret backup plan. I don't really tell people. I move in silence sometimes, but if you ask people, they're like, I always know something's brewing. We just are waiting for the announcement. So I think that, you know, that's just something that I've used as a survival mechanism. As things change around me, I want to be able to be prepared for that. So liking school, liking to read, you know, having little things back and forth and being able to get a lot of knowledge in has been very helpful to hopefully provide strategy. But I do not put strategy over relationships at all. So I agree with you, Danielle. Having the connections and the relationships are really important to me. And so if someone asks me to do something, I'm typically going to do it only because I want to make sure that they understand I value being able to support them.
I love those points you made. I definitely agree that time is valuable and relationships are key. I think that I don't know the atmosphere in New York, Danielle. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit about that. But definitely in Miami, it's all about who you know and how those relationships can help you grow. And I wanted to answer this question's for Danielle from one of our attendees. Maria asks, what advice do you give to women in journalism, asking as a recent journalism graduate who is struggling to find a job in that area and feels like it is mainly a male dominated field?
Oh, that's so interesting. I think it's hard because it's, at least with the male dominated versus female dominated thing, I think it has a lot to do maybe with what field of journalism you're trying to crack into. I think business and politics is sports. Those are all still like very heavily male dominated. I think when it comes to fashion and beauty and lifestyle, those are more female dominated. That's unfortunate. I think that obviously women can like sports and men can like fashion. So it's a little bit unfortunate that those are still kind of siloed that way. In terms of getting a job, and this job market is obviously at the moment. Just as an example, Hearst, which is Mary Claire's parent company, has had a freeze on all personnel movement at all whatsoever since the pandemic started. No layoffs, but also no hires. So, you know, we have a lot of open headcount on our staff at the moment, and I can't hire people for them, even though I want to. And there may be other companies that are going through the same thing. So I definitely feel for you right now. In terms of like putting yourself in the best position to get a job when these freezes lift or when there's an opening near you or in a subject matter that you're interested in, I would just say trying to like write as much as possible and increase your clips. If you're a journalist who likes to write, I mean, if you're a video producer, then work on getting your video clips, you know, whatever your medium is, but try and keep increasing those if you have the ability to freelance. I would try to do that. That will not only, just keep those writing muscles exercised and continue to have your byline out there, but that will grow your network too, because whoever your assigning editor is, wherever you're freelancing, they then have a whole world that they might be hiring for later. So I would say, try to freelance as much as possible. If you can't get freelance clips, I think, Substack is the latest sort of place that it's like the new Tumblr or whatever, where people are going to do their independent writing, and a lot of people are starting newsletters, which are really amazing, and that can also get your name out there and your byline out there. And another thing I would say, I don't know, I'm assuming you live there in Miami. If you can try to be a stringer at all, that's a person who, can take an assignment. Like, let's say there's an outlet that needs a reporter in Miami, but is not based in Miami, to go, for example, like during the election, the last couple of weeks, and to interview people on the ground in Miami, which Miami-Dade was such a pivotal county this year, and there was so much to be said about what happened during the election in that county. If you can either apply to be a stringer or look for those sorts of jobs, which might mean, you get called to just like go sit at the city council meeting and take notes on what's happening there and then report on that. That may not be the most exciting thing for you or the thing that you want to write about the most, but again, it's a way to get those clips, and it's a way to make connections with people who are maybe at an outlet that you could get a job with later. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Danielle. I wanted to ask both of you a more personal question, I guess you can say. So many women believe that you cannot be a successful professional while also balancing a strong personal and home life. Nashira, you have a daughter, and I know Danielle, we spoke about this offline as well, but I wanted to get both of your advice. Like what advice can you share to the people watching in regards to that topic?
So I know I stole this from someone. Unfortunately, I can't give them credit because I don't remember who I stole it from. But, I stopped seeing it as balance a long time ago. It's just effectiveness. And so I have work-life effectiveness. And when I was in grad school, this is where I really put it to effect. And I say, maybe on the Sunday when I have a little bit of time, because, Sunday fun day, we do not want to curtail that. But I'll say, okay, this week I have 3 papers, or no, I wouldn't have 3 papers, but I have a paper, a statistics project. I'm gonna be a great student this week. I'm gonna be amazing. I'm gonna be on it. I'm gonna be a really bad daughter. I'm gonna just have to be like, if you call me, I'll get back to you via text, but I just can't do it. And at work, I'm gonna be adequate, right? I'm gonna do 100%, or I'm gonna do like 90 or to 100% given the project. But as a student, I need to excel this week, and I'm gonna be effective. Because I think with balance, and I was talking about the metaphor, you see the balance, it's less of a balance beam for me and more of like a teeter-totter. I need someone else there to really balance it. And if I don't have that support, I am a single mom, then I'm gonna feel like I failed because I'm never getting off of the ground. I'm always feeling like I can't get this balance. But if I think of it as effectiveness, it's more of like, what can I do on my own? So that way, if I'm challenged by a slide or a monkey bar or whatever, you all have to excuse me for the actual metaphor that I'm doing right now. I have a child. Then however far I get, that's okay, because I want it to be successful in this one thing versus saying I want to be able to balance it all. So that's where I come from now. It has been helpful and effective for most things. But as far as balance is concerned, I'm not giving up on it. I think with a little bit more resources, I can make sure that happens, but I had to reframe it so I didn't feel unsuccessful.
Nashira, so well said. I have to absolutely second that. I think trying to, delude yourself into thinking that you'll always be able to balance things is just going to set you up for disappointment or frustration. So I think that was a really great point about, kind of deciding this is the week I'm going to be a good student, and next week, I'll be a good friend or whatever else it might be. I'll just add that I think it's important to set boundaries when you can and as early as you can. I know that that's really difficult. Again, I think it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier about women are stereotyped as being people pleasers, or if we aren't people pleasers and we're labeled as, difficult. And I also just have a little bit of that in my personality. So again, it's something that I still struggle with this many years into my professional life. But I think, being able to say to your boss or your team, whoever it is, like, I'm available from this time to this time. And like at that, I will be there 100% during that time. And then I have to be off from these hours. And if there's, an emergency or something, like I've set it up early on where if I go on vacation, I let people know that I'm going to, like on my team, that I'm going to be on vacation. And if there's something that like only I can address, that they need to send me an email that says, like, please read in all caps before the subject line, just so that when I'm scanning it at the end of the day on my vacation, which is something that I like still do, even though I really shouldn't, I know to only open that one that says please read, or that says like time sensitive, Danielle, we need your answer on this or something. But my team knows in advance that if they need to get my attention, that is what they need to do. And then I have deputized someone else to answer everything else. And I let them know that in advance as well. And I let that person know, like, you do have the ability to make this decision. And so I think that's just like one example of with time off, but like you have to set those boundaries and know what will work for you and your team. And like, because I do work in the news media, that's why I still check those emails like at the end of the day. But hopefully a lot of you can work in jobs where like you can really fully take, that whole week off and nothing about your job is going to implode during that. I think it's also understanding truly the nature of your business and like what is at stake if you answer that email or you don't answer that email. And a lot of times whether it's our ego or our relationship with our boss or whatever it is, something has convinced us that like we have to answer that email even if it's 11 p.m. or Sunday, or that we have to sign on before everyone else does or stay on later. Most of the time everybody's just kind of like concerned about themselves, and they're like, I don't know how much that will actually impact like the bottom line of your job and whether you would get a promotion or not. Like if you're able to accomplish your job in the standard work hours, you shouldn't have to answer emails on Saturday or Sunday. And definitely that depends on what industry you're in and the norms and in that sphere. But I would say generally like try to set your boundaries, and then when you're on, really be on and give it 100% and make sure that people know that. But then when you're off, be off.
I think it's perfectly said. I think that was a is it just me type of answer, because I was just like shaking my head agreeing to everything they were saying. Oh, I thought that was just me that felt that they had to answer to every single email at like every single time. So it's great to see a different perspective of other women that also face those like issues or those concerns. And we've had students, our attendees ask questions. So I really want to make sure that I ask you what they're sending. So one student asked, what's one important lesson you've learned since you've been in your current career, your current job?
I'm nosy, so I saw that question. I think one of the biggest things that I learned earlier in my career is that it's not all about me. I think a lot of time when you're struggling to make a name for yourself and build a reputation, sometimes you'll see like people laughing in the corners, like, are they laughing about my mistake or something like that? But for the most part, it's not really about you. I think when people have a dedicated time to talk to you and speak to you, they will do that. And so that's gotten me through a lot of different difficult conversations, because I did not anticipate there being a problem, and there wasn't. Versus before when I was starting out, I'm like, okay, everything that I'm doing is wrong. This email is because I did something wrong. This is because I did something wrong. And I didn't do anything that anybody else who was not a first-time employee would do. Like, I am actually excelling. And so I've gotten that mantra of like, they want to talk to me, but it's not about me. It's probably about the work. It's probably about a way to improve my work performance, but that's not enwrapped in my identity. And that is okay. That's okay.
Wow, that's such a good piece of advice. I'm gonna take that myself too. I would say like an important lesson I've learned in this job. Well, I think it's just like from this year, but I started as deputy editor at like the last week of January, so I only had like 6 weeks of like normalcy before um, everything changed. And so I don't know if it's like from being in my current role or just from the year of 2020, but I would say the thing that I've really learned is like how important it is, especially now that I'm a team leader, um, to have like human time with my colleagues as well. So because we've all been primarily working from home because of COVID, um, a lot more stuff was happening on Slack, which is, if you guys don't know what Slack is, it's like a chat system. I don't know if you guys use Slack there at FIU, but so a lot of communication was happening there, or like we were doing Zoom video calls, but I really missed just the casual interaction they would have, especially with people who are a couple levels junior to me. When I came into the office and I would pass their desk and I would say, hello, how are you? How was your weekend? What'd you do last night? Or if we were all in like a big brainstorm meeting and over Zoom, people are not quite as like loose and freewheeling with their ideas, I think, as they would be if we were all in the same room together. And then, inside jokes come out, and you really get to see people not just as their professional self, and everything isn't so business robotic almost. And I really miss that. So one of the things that I started doing, probably not until like late summer, especially after everything that happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor this summer, I think especially there was like and more need for human connection on our team. So I started scheduling calls that were not to talk about anything work related at all. So I would just put like 15 or 20 minutes on the calendar with my direct reports and just like, we're not talking about work. We're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about that's maybe going on in your life. How's your family? How are you feeling personally? What have you been reading lately? What have you been watching? Whatever that is, just like so we could get back to having those conversations that we would have if we were just at the water cooler, as they say. And so for me, more than ever, it made me realize like, you spend so much of your life with the people at work, and you're not always going to like love them. You don't have to love them. That's not what they're there for. You are there to do a job. But you should remember that they're all human, and we're all coming every day with like whatever else is happening in our life. And that sometimes, if the only thing that they ever receive from you is feedback on their work, positive or negative, that's going to change the dynamic of the relationship and the way that they think about, just the work that they do for you or with you or that you do for them. So I've just been trying to like refine the humanity at the office a little bit this year.
I love those perspectives that you bring, and it's definitely refreshing to hear like firsthand, since you have like a leadership position in your job. Both of you do. To hear those perspectives. And on the topic of leadership positions, Christina asked, what is one important advice you would give someone going into a leadership position for the first time?
I can just say really quickly, like, take advantage of whatever leadership training that is offered to you, or ask for it if it's not offered. I definitely struggled with that at first. One thing that's specific to journalism or magazine journalism is that as you move up the masthead, they call it, which is the increasing leadership roles, that is typically based on your talent as a writer or editor or designer or photographer or photo director. It's not necessarily based on your managerial skills. And those two things do not always coincide. Like, I might be really, really great at editing a feature. That doesn't mean I'm great at managing a team. Those are two very divergent skill sets. But because I'm good at editing a story. I've gotten this role, and now I have all these other people who report to me. So I am always signing up for whatever management training that HR sends out emails about. I've asked other more senior people than I am for if there are other management training opportunities, books that I can read, that sort of thing. I do feel like it's important to take some initiative in your own role as a leader and try to learn, because you might not have developed those skills yet. I think there aren't a lot of places that teach you those skills.
I think for me, one of the advice that I have is that leadership and being a leader are two like nouns that you don't own, and people define that for you. So a lot of times when you're like, I'm a transformational leader, how do you know unless you've asked the people that you've transformed, right? So being able, I think if you see leadership as leading, which is an action, if you are leading, you're taking active steps to consistently answer a call that you have been asked to answer. If you're not doing that, then that is probably a problem, right? Step one, that's a problem. After that, honing in on what you would like to be known for is not as difficult, because if you're answering the call, then at least you're responding. And then at that point, your responses can be tailored to the group that you're acting on behalf of, or you're acting in accordance with. And so that would be my advice, is that always, as Danielle said, continue that leadership journey. Leading is an action, and if you're not evolving through those actions, then you can't own that leadership. The leadership and how you're in how it's defined for you will be harnessed by other people.
I'm writing down all these inspirational quotes because truly, like, perfectly answered. Both of you are amazing. And then I guess this would be the last question from our attendees. Camila asked, how do you move forward when something doesn't go the way you wanted, or you face some difficulties at work? Who do you look up to for inspiration or mentorship in these cases?
So I think maybe I got this from Oprah. I honestly from everybody, but I think sitting in it is important. So I think someone said they throw like a 5-minute or 5-second pity party, and then they move forward. Sometimes my pity parties last for like a day. Sometimes it's really big. You get really excited about the opportunity to do something. But if you don't sit in that disappointment, there's really no way you're going to create a plan that's going to allow you to move forward, because you're going to always be pivoting back to that emotional piece. So validating your emotions in the moment is really important. If you can't do it I'm not a big crier anyway. I tell people I emote, but emotional, maybe not so much.
I like that.
I'm not a big crier necessarily, but I think people know when I'm despondent. People understand when I don't have the optimism that I typically have. And so it starts to create a bit of a culture that is really difficult to pull back if you don't sit in that. And so your friends feel that too, like when you're being a different friend because you don't want to share something that happened, they get it. So being able to coalesce with that, whether that's formally through therapy or with yourself or with individuals you trust, be able to be disappointed. That is a valid feeling. Then strategize. So if you think this is going to be a long line of disappointment, there are some things you got to do to get out. If you feel like this is one step, like Danielle said, that the hands were tied and they couldn't make something happen, then start strategizing about when those hands won't be tied, because everybody will have a day where things will be different. So start strategizing around that. But yeah, that would be my advice is validate your feelings and then move in the way that you know will be best for yourself.
Again, great response from Nashara. I have to echo all of that. And I definitely, I want to take one point you were saying about, whether that's with therapy or friends or whatever, definitely do what you need to do for your mental health. There have definitely been times in my career where I sought out a therapist to specifically deal with a problem. I've also done that in my personal life, like, oh, I'm going to seek out a therapist just for this specific moment, whether that's, I see them for 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is. I think that's really helpful. I think also, again, going back to those networks that we talked about earlier, like I have a group chat of a bunch of editors that we all used to work together at one publication. None of us work together anymore. None of us work at that publication anymore. And some people have even moved, sort of taken a career pivot, and they're not even maybe in journalism specifically anymore. But they're great people for me to go to who don't have any dog in the fight, so they can give me some hold back perspective. If I have, something that is troubling me at work, and I can go to them and kind of be like, what do you guys think? Am I being oversensitive here? Am I right? Am I wrong? What should I do? Who could I talk to? I think it's good to have a group of people who are like, they're not my best friends. And so they're not coming at it either with that like immediately defend Danielle perspective. They've been in this industry, they're familiar with sort of the problems I might be facing, and they support me, but they also have like a little bit of a step back perspective. And so I lean on that. We all sort of lean on each other a lot in that group chat. So I think, again, networks are really great. They're just so important for your professional success.
Yeah, having that emotional and personal support is super important. I think that as young adults or people watching would agree with that, especially going through these difficult years. Being in college and your undergrad studies is definitely not as cookie cutter as it may seem on TV. And both of you can for sure attest, you went through the same paths. So we're coming to an end. And I wanted to close off by having a more interactive conversation with the participants before they start logging off. And I want everyone to list at least 3 things on your bucket list, whether it be professional or personal, and explain really quick and briefly the significance behind each one. And maybe
Alex,
or you guys both of you can say it out loud. I can go first if all of you want. So for sure, on my professional bucket list, I aspire to one day hold office in as president of the United States, and that I would say that's my biggest aspiration. On a personal level, I would say definitely being able to expand my relationships with my colleagues, whether it be people like Nashira and Danielle that have different career paths, or people in my same career path. And another professional one, I would say to graduate next semester with my bachelor's and really make my parents proud in that sense. So who's next?
I'll go ahead and go next. My professional bucket list, I want to write a book, which is something I've been saying for a very long time, and I just never actually feel like writing in my personal time after I've spent all of my professional time writing and editing. But I love reading, whether it's novels or narrative nonfiction. So definitely that's a bucket list goal. Someday I'll get there. I also think it'd be really cool to be a professor of journalism at some point somewhere, even like adjunct or just like one class a semester or something small. So I would love to do that at some point. And then my big bucket list is to be the editor-in-chief of a major national consumer magazine at some point, which is kind of like the ultimate goal for magazine editors. And then my personal bucket list, I'm engaged right now, so to have our wedding we have rescheduled it 1 full year, so hopefully that gets to happen next year, and be a mom. And I also really, really want to see the Northern Lights. So those are my personal bucket list.
Congratulations. I am extremely happy for you. It's amazing news. And I loved hearing your personal side. Often when we have these conversations, we always get to like the professional and like mentorship and careers. And it's nice to see, that we're not robots, that we're real people at the end of the day, and like get to know each other on a more personal basis.
Thank you.
For me, I like to tell people that I'm a geospatial hippie, but I'm not. You just have a feeling about a place, right? And so I love to travel to Africa. I enjoy traveling a lot, and I haven't gotten into it until later on. But part of that is because of my another goal. Like my largest goal is to build generational wealth. I come from a first generation college, like I'm a first generation college student. A lot of the way that we perceive money is very different because of my background. And so being able to see money as a resource, but not the resource, is very important for me moving throughout generations. And then the last thing is I've realized that over time, I like the type of jobs that I can build my own. So really having a consultancy firm that gets people where they need to be, regardless of their area of study. Like I told you, I'm hippy dippy. So, something in DEI, maybe something when it comes to access and success in college, or maybe even something where it comes to running for office or local office, because I couldn't help you. Piece, that's a bit much, but local office might be something that I look forward to doing. So I think those are really intermixed goals, personal and professional.
Well, hopefully I get the opportunity to vote for you because you've earned my vote just off this conversation. You're both very inspirational and motivating women, and I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to sit with both of you and have this conversation. And continuing on this discourse of hopefully continuing this program with more dialogue and more interactive conversations from our audience as well. So I really want to thank you all for joining us as we continue this program and creating more opportunities for women at FIU. We've learned about validating our emotions so that people know that women aren't the stereotypical image that is portrayed of us. Making sure that we stand our ground and advocate for one another. And I appreciate this conversation. It truly leaves it leaves a positive note for everyone watching. So as we continue this series, I want to encourage you all to stay tuned to our social medias, and our next session will be in January. So follow us along our social media platforms to stay up to date on those details, which will be released very soon. So, but for the most part, happy holidays to all of you, and best of luck on your finals, which are slowly creeping in. And again, I want to wish everyone a great day, and thank you to our amazing panelists. I hope to speak to both of you very soon, and we'll stay in touch definitely. But bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Nice to meet you, Nashira.
Nice to meet you too. I took so many notes. Thank you so much. I'm always a student, so I really appreciate you, Alex, Michelle, and Danielle. Thank you so much.
Of course. Bye.